You're watching News Central now on News Central Television. I am Lekan Onabanjo. The top stories at this hour. Over 40 persons feared trapped as building collapses in Abuja. Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau says no trace of missing persons, debris 48 hours after helicopter crash in Rivers State. Confederation of African Football awards Nigeria Super Eagles 3 points, 3 goals against Libya. Details to come your way shortly. Our coverage tonight begins in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where we understand that no fewer than 40 people are trapped under a rubble of a building that collapsed on Saturday in the Sabon Lugbe area of the city. Sympathizers and emergency workers are said to be on site, working to rescue those still caught beneath the debris. The building, reportedly under construction, collapsed in the early hours, prompting calls for immediate intervention from government agencies and emergency response teams. Witnesses at the scene have expressed urgency for additional support to aid ongoing rescue efforts. Well, we are going to stay on this particular story. Hopefully, we will have Joshua Marayu, who has been looking over this particular issue as it happened in Sabon Lugbe in Abuja, to get more details from him during the course of the bulletin tonight. Meanwhile, a fire has gutted a section of the Lagos Blue Line track at Osport opposite NEPA station by Eco Bridge in Ward Akpongbon. According to a representative of the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata, the electrical cable that powered the train mobility through the bridge was the source of the fire. However, when contacted, the spokesperson for the fire service in Lagos, Amodu Shakri, is yet to provide a definite information on the fire incident. In a post on X, the special advisor to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on media and publicity, Boyega Koshile, also said there was no casualty reported and no train service at the time of the incident. Let's also tell you that the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has reported that almost 48 hours after the tragic helicopter accident in the Port Harcourt region of Rivers State, neither the chopper's debris nor the 3 people who were left inside have been located. In a statement on Saturday by the Director of Public Affairs and Family Assistance of the NSIB, Bimbo Oladiji, stated that as at 7:30 a.m. local time, rescue teams resumed search operations in line with global best practices, but left the scene same day without finding anything nor anyone. Recall that on Thursday, East Wind Aviation Sikorsky SK-76 helicopter registered FNBQG crashed while en route to the FPSO NUIM's Antan. 8 people were on board, 2 crew members, including 6 passengers. Now, the new Nigeria People's Party has secured all the chairmanship and councillorship positions in the just concluded local government elections across the 44 local government areas of Kano State in a sweeping victory. This was announced by the chairman of the Kano Independent Electoral Commission, KANSEC, Sani Malumfashi, at the commission's headquarters, declaring the NNPP as the winner in every local government contested. 6 political parties participated in the election, which was conducted peacefully throughout the state. Still on the local government elections in Kano State on Saturday, the polls witnessed a low turnout of voters, especially in the Kano metropolis and its environs. Newsmen who monitored the election report that while voting had yet to start in the morning due to the late arrival of materials, voters had not turned up to some of the polling centers visited in the metropolis. At the History and Culture Bureau, elections had not started as of 10:44 a.m. local time due to the late arrival of election materials. It was, however, observed that even though the election had started on time at the Tawarini PHC polling center, which houses 3 polling units, there was generally a low turnout of voters. In the meantime, suspected thugs on Saturday invaded a polling unit in Kano Municipal Local Government area, disrupting the voting process and maintained that elections must not hold. The suspected thugs, mostly youths, were seen chanting songs against the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission and threatened those on queue waiting to cast their ballots. And joining me to discuss this further is Dipo Olayoku, National Secretary, NNPP. Thank you so much, Dipo, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, News Central. Good evening, viewers. Good evening.
Of course, it's nice to have you around. Now, let's start this way. Based on the different court rulings by the federal and the state high courts, should this election have held?
Yes. Because don't forget that even about a month ago, the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission went to court because there were some security reports that some people were trying to truncate the election. And in that court, they got an order that they must go ahead with the election. Don't forget that the Electoral Act and the Constitution of Nigeria is very, very clear. They are clear on two facts. That one, no court can stop the primary of any political party. Then went further to say no court can stop any election. It is the law. That if you have any issue with any of these issues, either the primaries of a political party or the general elections, you go to court after the election. Because those who drafted the Constitution, they were conscious of the fact that some people, especially from our experience in June 1993, when some people under the ages of what they call ABN, I went to court to stop the 1993 elections. And that was what created the problem that came after the 1990. So it was on the basis of that that those who drafted the Constitution and the Electoral Act said, no, we don't do that. Because a lot of factors, a lot of processes has gone into preparation for election. So somebody cannot just look up and say, go and stop this election. That's why they said, whatever grievances you have with any issue, go to court. And that was why the Kano State High Court gave the ruling and joined all the political parties to say nobody should take any action to stop the election, and gave the CANSIEC, that is the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, they go ahead.
But then the Federal High Court in Kano, while halting the, of course, through its verdict, halted the council elections, cited that the alleged actually talked about, the CANSIEC being an illegal constitution. Talked about the fact that it is an unconstitutionally recognized body. So what's going to be your take on that?
The creation of CANSIEC, the CANSIEC rather, is a creation of the Nigeria Constitution. And I think the Nigeria Constitution is the ground norm. Every law derives from the Constitution. So if an earlier court has said, CANSIEC, go ahead with your election, nothing must stop the election, all the agencies that have any role to play must cooperate with CANSIEC. I think what behoves anybody who has any issue with the election, what he needs to do, he needed to have done, was to have gone to a higher court, not to go to a court of coordinate jurisdiction to get a judgment to counter a judgment of the High Court. And if the CANSIEC already has a judgment that says, you guys go ahead with your election, so that is the judgment that the CANSIEC is holding, except there is a judgment from a higher court, not a court of the same jurisdiction. So I definitely, like I said, like everybody knows, this is not going to be the end of the story. It is still going to go ahead, but it will be, don't forget, I want to understand this history of this election we are having in all the states. When the federal government went to court, that they wanted to stop any local government that does not have a democratically elected councillor or government, that they want the Supreme Court to stop them from operating and order the federal government not to pay the regular monthly allocation to the states. When the judgment came, there was an agreement between the states and the federal government. Because if we have to go and conduct election, there's a 7 days stipulated by the Constitution, and there was an agreement which necessitated the states. You notice that in the past one month, many states have conducted local government election because there is a deadline given based on the arrangement they have with the federal government that after this date, then the Supreme Court judgment will come into effect.
Okay.
And all these states were struggling to meet this deadline. Other states have done their own.
All right.
But typically them, we know the party that is behind all this issue. We know them. Anything has to do with Kano, because of their desperation to get Kano at all costs, which they lost to the ballot paper.
Okay, so Dikko, yes, so I understand your point. Now, before now, a few people, state actors and youths have actually expressed reservations as regards the credibility of or the integrity of CANSEC itself to conduct, credible elections. Now, we see that your party, won all the 44 local government areas in terms of the chairmanship and councillorship seats or positions. Now, tell me, how credible is this election in a democratic setting where your party won all the seats without an exception?
But the credibility can only be questioned by a court of competent jurisdiction. I am in Kano, just like other members of the NWC, because deliberately the NWC came up with a team to go into the various polling units, the local government, central district, to go and monitor the election. And where I monitored, people came out to vote.
But it was a low turnout.
You said?
It was a low turnout.
It was a low turnout because if you look at the history of local government election, in Nigeria generally, Nigerians are only concerned about the the presidential election. It is when you say low turnout, it is not a new thing in Nigeria, especially local government election. We need to go into history. But the polling units where I and my team, where we monitored, elections held, people came out, votes were counted in our presence. And from there, we moved until we got to the local government headquarters, where the final results were announced. I was there and with my team. And the results were announced, the votes scored by each political party were printed out. And they were signed, don't forget, those results sheets were signed by agents of political parties that were present.
But you didn't, your roving didn't cut across all the polling units where elections were held.
That's why my team covered. That is why I made it very clear that where my team covered, when we moved from polling unit to polling unit, and then we moved to collation centers until we got to local government. And to the best of our knowledge, results that were announced, there wasn't any variation. And I cannot tell you categorically like that some party agents that took part in the election, they signed the result sheets. Some parties boycotted the election, which is typical. Election is voluntary. It is not mandatory that you must take part in every election. So those who took part, they did it. So if there's any issue, the courts are there so that they look into all matter, because that is the unfortunate thing. Our elections have become an issue. If you are talking about integrity and credibility of an election, we are talking about if there's anything we must do, what you need to do is to do electoral reform generally.
Oh, okay. So what about
if there's anybody that has any issue?
Okay, I understand. So what about the fact that, we are hearing stories that it seems as though the NNPP in Kano State is factionalized. Of course, the Federal High Court in Kano sacked all 44 chairmanship and councillorship candidates before this election after a petition was submitted. So what's your reaction to that? And of course, we did see that your party actually, swept the entire seats.
Thank you very much. The courts are there to make pronouncements, and then it depends on the judgment that you already have before. Don't forget that in the 2023 election, some courts came and said they have sacked all the candidates of PDP in one state. Until matter got to Supreme Court, and only Supreme Court saved those who were able to get to Supreme Court. But some candidates or some winners who could not get to Supreme Court lost their legitimate mandate. So Supreme Court has given the threshold. Are you getting my point? So that is the law. Supreme Court would then decide who happens to be the candidate. But as far as the elections are concerned, NNPP has candidates that went through the mills. When I say the mills, the primary monitored by the CANSEC, and they do everything, and they were screened by the CANSEC. Don't forget that immediately after the former governor, the Amechi victory at the Supreme Court in 2007, thereabout, you know that the National Assembly came up with the law that before you can take part in any election and be declared winner, you must have taken part in all these processes. Okay. And the processes begin with the collection of forms. It continues with the primaries, with the screening. And if anybody didn't take part, if all these properties are taking part in all these processes, and somebody who did not take part in all these processes just come out of a certain by fear, become a candidate, that is against the spirit of the constitution that we practice in Nigeria now.
All right. Dipo Olayoko, thank you so much.
The two parties in this election went through the mills, all the processes they took part, and CANSEC accepted them. So CANSEC is not conducting the election, and they have said, okay, these are the candidates for today's election.
All right, noted. Dipo Olayoko, of course, the National Secretary, NNPP, thank you so much for your time on the news.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, of course, just as Oladipo has said, this matter might not be fizzling out anytime soon. We're hoping that in our subsequent broadcasts on the News Radio and News Central, we'll be able to get the reactions of other opposition parties, most especially the APC that actually boycotted the election, to have more perspective and more understanding to this. But then we go on a break on the news. When we return, Jigawa withdraws from suit challenging anti-graft agency. We'll bring you more details when we return. Stay with us. Many thanks for being there. Jigawa State has withdrawn from the high-profile Supreme Court case initiated by the Kogi State government against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The case challenged the constitutionality of the EFCC's authority to investigate state funds. At a press briefing held on Saturday, Jigawa's Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Bello Fanini, confirmed the state's withdrawal. He said the move was in the best interest of Jigawa's legal and administrative priorities. Recall that on October 24, 2024, a notice of withdrawal was filed in Abuja to officially remove Jigawa State from the case pending at the Supreme Court. Fanini added that the notice has been served to the Chief Registrar, the Attorney General of the Federation, and other plaintiff states. Now, President Bola Tinubu recently issued new guidelines to reduce government spending on official convoys and security. Under these measures, ministers of state, and heads of federal agencies are now limited to 3 vehicles in their convoys, with no additional vehicles allowed. Each official can have a maximum of 5 security personnel, including 4 police officers and 1 Department of State Services officer. The National Security Advisor has also been tasked with consulting military and security agencies to further reduce vehicle and personnel usage. These changes, effective immediately, reinforces Tinubu's cost-saving goals, similar to his earlier move in January, which reduced entourage sizes for both his and the Vice President's official travels. Earlier, a legal practitioner and political analyst, Towo Seruoja, spoke to us on these developments.
President Tinubu did, which to what I understand is like telling Nigeria that, well, I'm going to buy a cup of rice and it's costing us $500,000. But however, due to the fact that we are undergoing some economic situation, I'm going to get it for 700,000 naira. So that we won't be able to be spending in millions. Remember, $500,000 and 700,000. So the president decided to tell Nigerians that, well, I'm not going to get it for $500,000. I'm going to get it for 700,000. So I just want to do away with anything that has to do with million, and let's be dealing with thousand. So if you look at it carefully, you discover that the president is basically not sincere when it comes to the policy and his action as to cost of governance. When he came into power in 2023, the first thing, I think, after a gamble of how best he can manage the economy, in February 2024, he told us that, well, he's going back to the Steve Orisanya led panel report, which was set up then in 2012 by Goodluck Jonathan. by Goodluck Jonathan. And the report came out in 2014. But surprisingly, that is 8 months into his administration. Surprisingly, 8 months after that pronouncement in February, he's coming out again with more ministers. And I think he should go along the record line that he has more ministers than any other president we've ever had in Nigeria. So look at it from this perspective. Why will a minister in this hard economy be entitled to 4 security personnel?
Nigeria's federal government says that it has commenced the process of nationalizing cartoon contents in the country to help rebrand the nation's public image and inculcate the virtue of patriotism among citizens. Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation made this known at the launch of the Unveiling and Rebrand Nigeria initiative, which was held in the nation's capital, Abuja. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
Nigerian children singing songs of unity, hope and patriotism at the Unveiling and Rebranding Nigeria Initiative Conference, which held at the nation's capital, Abuja.
Nigeria, Nigeria.
Themed Rise Up Patriot, it's a gathering of reputable statesmen proven with integrity who appeal to the consciousness of their fellow countrymen to be positive and project admirable characters that will give Nigeria a good name in the international community.
That if you realize what Nigeria is as a country, it is not difficult to love Nigeria because many people love to hate Nigeria. Why? Because Nigeria is something else. Nigeria cannot be stopped. In spite of our problems, in spite of everything, Nigeria is still standing.
What that means is, henceforth, for the next 3 years, we want to raise the content produced here in cartoons about us, about our values, about our tradition and culture, to at least 70% of the content our children are consuming. So that means there will be a lot of investment into animation. So on the 30th, 31st of October and 1st of November in Lagos, there's a festival of animation, creators. 26 countries are participating, so we will be there.
A patriot should be a fully rounded citizen. You must respect your heritage, you must take pride in your history and culture, but you must also be a citizen that obeys the laws, a citizen that votes, because if you don't vote, you are already creating the condition for reckless people to get into public positions of responsibility, and to create more problems rather to solve fundamental needs and aspirations of the citizens.
A former Nigeria International Olympic gold medalist, Emmanuel Babanyaro, frowned at the negligence in the use of sport to promote patriotism to project a positive image for the country.
Whenever we're on the pitch, it's not just us playing. We're representing over 200 million people. You see, that patriotism is being implanted into your head. It's called orientation. That's why you see the average sports person is naturally very patriotic, irrespective of what he or she is going through. You understand? You've never had an athlete ever, no matter his or her complaint, saying, "Oh, I regret representing Nigeria." It never happens.
The Rebrand Nigeria initiative is expected to change this negative perception to a positive one. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Let's now tell you that the APC Transition Committee, led by Dr. Pius Odubu, clarified what they called false claims and untruths put in the public domain by officials of the state government overtly or covertly. According to them, the outgoing PDP administration of Governor Godwin Obaseki in Edo State has not presented the necessary documents that will enable a smooth transition process, a situation that has hindered the work of the APC Transition Committee. In a statement, they criticized claims that their request for hard copies was because members of the APC committee are not tech savvy, saying that it was agreed that it be made available in both soft and hard copies. They added that the documents sent are vague in respect of the expected details, among other details. Talking education, the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, has postponed its nationwide strike to December 2, 2024 to give the federal government time to address its demands. ASUP's October 7 ultimatum outlined 11 issues, including National Board for Technical Education interference in HND admissions, infrastructure revitalization, delayed promotions, and unpaid salary arrears. Following a stakeholders meeting on October 23, resolutions were made to address these demands. ASUP's emergency meeting on October 24 reviewed the action plan, deciding to delay the strike to assess the government's commitments. ASUP expects the government to implement the agreed-upon actions to avoid a full strike by polytechnic staff in December. Away from that, the Nigeria Customs Service, Kebbi State Command, has intercepted 16,300 liters of premium motor spirits, 180 pieces of donkey skins, used clothes, and 74 cartons of various medicaments, with a total duty paid value of over 300 million naira. Displaying the seized items at the command's headquarters in Benin, Kebbi, the comptroller of the NCS, Kebbi State Command, Ihanacho Ojike, credited the successful operation to the coordinated efforts of outfield officers at the command's intelligence unit. OGK disclosed that despite the challenges and inconvenience brought by fuel scarcity, certain individuals exploited the situation by smuggling petroleum products out of the country. As part of efforts to support the improvement of lives of citizens on the African continent and the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, 50 outstanding Africans, including non-governmental organizations and others who have contributed to supporting this objective, are set to receive commendation in the nation's capital, Abuja. The event, with the theme Building Sustainable Platform for Economic Growth and Development in Nigeria and Africa, will present awards to those who have made social impact, created opportunities for underprivileged citizens of the continent, and helped reduce unemployment in countries across Africa.
Over the years, in the last 3 years, impacted nearly 2,000 individuals across Africa. And these individuals have been impacted by people who believe in the vision, in the future, in the growth and on the development of Africa. Now, by giving them this award, it shows that we appreciate them for what they do. It shows that we see what they do. And it shows that we are grateful for the impact that they have made in Africa.
And talking about power generation in Nigeria, the Giant of Africa's Rural Electrification Agency signed a multi-stakeholder memorandum of understanding with the Nigeria Immigration Service, the Nigeria Police Trust Fund, the National Training Institute of Nigeria, and the National Agricultural Development Fund to enhance efforts aimed at accelerating access to clean, reliable, and sustainable energy for rural communities across the country. The managing director of the agency says that the agreement represents a significant step towards driving innovation and expanding renewable energy solutions in key institutions in Nigeria. The agency also signed MOUs with 19 renewable energy service companies to support efforts aimed at providing sustainable and utility-scale renewable energy capacity to citizens. Amadin Uyi reports.
With Nigeria transmitting about 4,000 megawatts of electricity to its over 200 million population, many believe that this continues to put the country in a dire situation as millions do not have access to electricity. According to Nigeria's Rural Electricity Agency, many citizens continue to face hardship as electricity for them and those in rural communities continue to be luxury.
The country has the largest number of unelectrified Nigerians, and the federal government, in its own quest to address this challenge, signed the Electricity Act of 2023. The Electrification Act changed the entire dynamics of electricity sector in the country by liberalizing the entire value chain and giving opportunity to states to participate in the entire value chain of the electricity in the country.
In a bid to address this problem, the agency has signed a memorandum of understanding with about 4 key government agencies to help improve their operations and boost their service delivery to citizens.
This partnership is not going to be just signing of a document and going. No. What we are doing here is signing a roadmap on which the Rural Electrification Agency and these government agencies are going to partner together to help in addressing key electricity challenge in the country.
Representatives of some of the partners from the Nigeria Immigration Service, the Nigeria Police Trust Fund, the National Training Institute of Nigeria, and the National Agricultural Development Fund say the agreement will improve their operations and boost public service delivery.
This project is a very laudable one, and NIS and REA are going to partner together. I think this is the beginning of many good things to come. At the Nigerian Immigration Service, we're deploying technology in manning our borders. When I say technology, I'm referring to the IVS system that we're using at all our borders. I'm talking about the e-gate at our airports. I'm talking about our data center, which is a Tier 4 data center, one of the best in the world.
The deployment of solar-powered infrastructure across police facilities nationwide will not only reduce our dependence on traditional energy sources, but also provide sustainable and reliable power to our police personnel, enhancing their capacity to serve and protect.
Renewable energy has the potential to significantly drive production in terms of quantity and productivity, particularly with regards to the quality of the produce. Renewable energy enables cold storage solutions that reduce post-harvest losses, helping farmers preserve their produce longer, increasing their incomes and accessing broader markets.
The agency also signed MOUs with 19 utility service providers along the electricity supply and distribution value chain to help its quest to provide cleaner electricity to Nigerians. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Coming up on the news, 10 boy feared dead in another Ugandan fuel tanker fire. We'll tell you more when we return. Stay with us. The news continues in East Africa, where another fuel tanker has overturned and burst into flames on Saturday at Kyanamira Trading Center on Kabale-Mbarara Highway in Kabale District, Western Uganda. Kabale's traffic police officer in charge says while the driver's turned boy is said to be trapped in the blazing fuel tanker, the driver has been taken to Kabale Hospital in severe condition. In the meantime, no one from the trading center was hurt and the accident scene has been thoroughly secured. Reports say the vehicle was going to Rwanda or the Democratic Republic of Congo. This tragic event comes just 3 days after another fuel tanker burst into flames at Kigogwa town, killing 15. Staying in the east of the continent, but this time in central Sudan, the Rapid Support Forces have launched a brutal attack on villages in Al Jazeera state, killing at least 50 people and wounding over 200 in Al Sariha alone. The villages of Al Sariha and Azraq have been under siege since Friday morning, with the resistance committee in Hazaisha reporting that they are unable to evacuate the wounded due to ongoing bombing and sniper fire. This latest attack is part of a larger pattern of violence by the Rapid Support Forces, who have been accused of ethnic cleansing and killing thousands in West Darfur. In southern Africa, the ongoing ZANU-PF Annual People's Conference in Bulawayo has passed a resolution to perpetuate President Emmerson Mnangagwa's rule beyond 2028, when his constitutionally permissible 2 terms come to an end. However, the 82-year-old ZANU-PF leader has declined the offer to remain at the helm of the party and state beyond the two-term cap. The party secretary for legal affairs, Patrick Chinamasa, made the announcements during a tent in Daba this Saturday. Away from the shores of Africa, we tell you that a suicide bomber detonated an explosive at a checkpoint in western Pakistan on Saturday, killing 8 people and wounding 5 more, according to officials. The bomber set off the blast from the back of a motorbike rickshaw near the town of Mir Ali in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, a local police officer told newsmen on condition of anonymity. 4 police officers were killed alongside 2 members of the state paramilitary force and 2 civilians in the attack near the border with Afghanistan. Pakistan has seen an increase in militancy since the Afghan Taliban returned to power in 2021, with Islamabad claiming hostile groups are now using the neighboring country for shelter. 3 waves of pre-dawn strikes on military targets in Iran carried out by the Israel Defense Forces on Saturday completed Israel's response to Iran in a hostile exchange between the 2 regional powers that has had the world on edge for weeks, fearing a dangerous expansion of the war. The IDF said it had hit aerial defense systems and missile manufacturing facilities in Iran, avoiding nuclear and oil facilities in what appeared to be a limited attack aimed at deterrence by showing its military's might while avoiding a major escalation. Now, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has urged Iran not to retaliate following Israeli strikes on military bases and missile sites. Israel launched the strikes in response to a missile barrage, resulting in the deaths of 2 Iranian soldiers. Starmer acknowledged Israel's right to defend itself, but emphasized the need for restraint. He is calling for de-escalation and is working with allies to reduce tensions in the region. The situation remains volatile, with Israel intercepting 2 drones from Lebanon hours after the strikes.
I want to address Israel's strikes on military targets in Iran. This is a live situation and we are obviously monitoring it closely alongside our partners. I am clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against Iranian aggression. I'm equally clear that we need to avoid further regional escalation and urge all sides to show restraint. Iran should not respond. We will continue to work with allies to de-escalate the situation across the region.
The 56-member Commonwealth has released a joint statement agreeing to discussions on the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, acknowledging its painful history and the call for reparatory justice. The system marks a significant step towards addressing the brutal trade that saw millions of slaves taken from Africa over 4 centuries. While Britain and other colonial powers have apologized for slavery, they have avoided committing to financial reparations. The Commonwealth leaders' agreement to engage in a meaningful conversation may pave the way for future reparations. The summit's outcome is seen as a historic opportunity for the Commonwealth to lead the process with vision and courage.
Heads emphasized that the Commonwealth had never retreated from respectful conversations on difficult issues, but rather has been at the vanguard of matters of great importance and significance to its members. Heads noted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the Commonwealth Charter, the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 75/123, and the acknowledgement of the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action that slavery and the slave trade, including the transatlantic trade, as appalling tragedies in the history of humanity, not only because of their abhorrent barbarism, but also in terms of their magnitude. organized nature and especially their negation of the essence of the victims. Now, as a result, heads noting the calls for a discussion on reparatory justice with regard to the transatlantic slave trade, the trade in enslaved Africans and chattel enslavement, and recognizing the importance of this matter to members of the Commonwealth, the majority of which share common historical experiences in relation to this abhorrent trade.
Let's now bring you the day's business news.
In business, the International Monetary Fund has reported that oil-producing nations in sub-Saharan Africa are growing at about half the pace of the broader region, with economic growth described as subdued and uneven. The IMF's regional economic outlook highlights that while economies like Senegal and Tanzania are expected to outperform, Nigeria is projected to lag with 2.9% growth. The region's overall growth forecast is 3.6% for 2024, slightly below the 3.8% projected in April. The IMF urged oil exporters to pursue economic reforms to diversify growth and attract private sector investment. Despite Nigeria's reforms under President Tinubu, including energy and foreign exchange changes, the nation struggles with high inflation and poverty, hindering economic progress. And in Southern Africa, Zimbabwe's monthly inflation skyrocketed to 37.2% in October, a stark contrast to the 5.8% recorded just a month prior. This surge, according to the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, comes on the heels of a significant devaluation of the country's gold-backed currency, the ZiG. The devaluation, a 43% decrease in value against the US dollar, was implemented in September due to a widening gap between official and unofficial exchange rates. This gap stemmed partly from a severe drought, forcing Zimbabwe to import food, leading to increased dollar demand. The devaluation has triggered a domino effect, with essential services like electricity and mobile phone subscriptions experiencing price hikes in local currency. Consequently, a recent $40 pay raise for government workers aimed at mitigating the devaluation's impact has lost value due to the widening gap between official and black market exchange rates. And finally, China has voiced concerns over US tariffs and Russia-related sanctions at the latest Economic Working Group session in Washington, as country's finance ministry reported. The discussions took place between China's Vice Minister of Finance, Liao Min, and US Treasury Undersecretary Jay Shambo, marking the sixth such meeting. The talks occurred alongside the annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, where Liao also met with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. The exchange underscored the ongoing economic friction between the two nations, addressing trade tensions and the impact of geopolitical sanctions. That's a package on business news at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly.
In sports, it is a double victory for Nigeria today. The Confederation of African Football ruled in favor of the Super Eagles, while Rasheedat Ajibade shone for the Super Falcons, leading them to a 2-0 triumph over the Algerian Green Ladies in Ikenne, Ogun State. Our sports correspondent, Onyinyechi Obaro, has more.
In the world of sport, the Disciplinary Committee of the Confederation of African Football has awarded the Super Eagles of Nigeria 3 points and 3 goals in their abandoned Matchday 4 2025 African Cup of Nations qualifier against Libya, which was scheduled to be held in Benin on the 15th of October. In its ruling on Saturday, signed by Chairman Usman Kane, the disciplinary board determined that the Libyan Football Federation was in breach of the Article 31 of the African Cup of Nations regulations and Article 82 and 151 of CAF Disciplinary Code. The Libyan Football Federation was also ordered to pay a fine of $50,000, with payment due within 60 days of notification of the present decision. The outcome of the disciplinary committee means that Nigeria is close to qualifying for the 2025 African Cup of Nations with 2 matches to spare. Super Eagles B coach Augustine Guavon has invited 35 players for the 2025 African Nations Championship, the qualifying clash against Ghana. Remo Stars wingback Ismail Sadiq, Kano Pillars forward Zulkifli Rabiu, and Enugu Rangers attacking midfielder Kazim Ogunleye topped the list of players who plied their trade in the Nigeria Premier Football League. The first leg of the fixture is billed for the weekend of 20 to 22nd December, with a return leg a week later. The winner of the two-leg match will earn a slot in the 8th edition of the competition, which is exclusively reserved for footballers in their country's domestic league. The finals will be played across Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania from the 1st to 28th of February 2025. Finally, in the world of sport, in a bold step to allow homegrown young talents to shine, Super Falcons interim head coach Justin Madugu included 6 Nigerian Women's Football League players in the start list of the Grade A international friendly match between Nigeria and Algeria at the Remo Stars Stadium in Ikenne, Ogun State. The Falcons started 5 foreign pros, with the rest of the team coming from the domestic league. Nigeria's captain, Rasheedat Ajibade, broke the deadlock with a precise finish in the 24th minutes to give the Falcons the lead. Before halftime, Ajibade again made it a brace after a neatly executed pass from Edo Queens forward Folashade Jamilusi. With the scoreline at 2-0, the Falcons lead the Algerians before the break. A less eventful second half will have the game ending 2-0, giving interim coach Justin Madugu a winning start.
We are not saying we're satisfied with the performance because, like I said, it's still work in progress. But we need matches like this, games like this, to be able to test the players' abilities, to see what they can also bring to the table so that we ensure that at any time we select the best to represent the country.
I mean, every time we come to play in front of our fans, we want to make them proud because, you know, Super Falcons is one of those teams that give the nation joy every time. So we want to keep it consistent and want to keep doing our best to make sure we make the nation proud.
We can be satisfied, our teams, we can be satisfied for the second half, where some players comes in the field and were really, I think not better, but really in the game immediately. And we changed something tactically. And I think it was a very good game. And for Nigeria, it's a good opposition for them. I think so.
Another continental affair here at the Remo Stars home grounds. This time, an international friendly between Nigeria Super Falcons and the Green Ladies of Algeria. Nigeria leads the day 2-0 with a star performance coming from the captain of the side, Rasheedat Ajibade. This is a preparatory game, they say, would boost the confidence of the ladies after coming off a below-par performance from the Paris Olympic Games. We hope this mission gets accomplished as we await the second leg for the 29th of October, 2024. In Ikenne, Ogun State, I am Onyinyechi Obaro for News Central.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we'll look at our top stories again. Over 40 persons fear trapped as building collapses in Abuja. Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau says no trace of missing persons debris 48 hours after helicopter crash in Rivers State. We also told you that Confederation of African Football awards Nigeria's Super Eagles 3 points, 3 goals against Libya. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.